We are here for a brand new episode of the F1 Challenge Career Mode season. The series that we try to take the worst car possible on F1 24 all the way to championship glory in a shortened 10 race season. With that being said, let's get straight into the video and into the action. No sprint weekend this time around, so straight into the short qualifying session. Starting off the qualifying, this is the setup that we're going to be using and possibly adapting as the session goes on and we get used to different grip levels, different feelings from the car, and as we try to maximize it. Something as well is I have adjusted my camera angle settings ahead of this episode, quite simply as I just prefer a more zoomed in camera compared to being zoomed out, and I'm just going to quickly show you now exactly the camera settings that I'm using if you would like to be using them yourself at home as well. So that's what I'm going to be using for this episode here today in Mexico City as we're coming around the final sector, getting ready to open up our qualifying lap here. Going through the stadium, take out the bollard so that we can cut over that curbing section a bit more efficiently next time around. Bit of sliding, have to get used to this car again, where it's a very, very low grip, very high drag, and just a bit of a slow car overall. A 13.4 by Checo Perez to open up the session. That's pretty quick if I remember. Flying down into turn one, trying to get the car rotated through these first apexes. A bit conservative on the curbing, but still pretty decent. Using the overtake button up into 7th gear. This should hopefully be one of our better tracks on the calendar. Normally we're quite strong at Mexico City and the AI are not at their peak performance normally around this track as well. But there's a lot of tire deg to take into consideration, and as you've been watching episodes earlier in the series, AI are very, very strong on their tire wear. Coming through the chicane and now using a bit more overtake button. This lap's been pretty strong to open up with. Hasn't been peaking though, but a very nice banker nevertheless. Probably go down to 4th gear next time around into the final sector, and that was a very, very sloppy. A lot of lap time to find. And the rear tyres giving up as we go around the final corner of the lap, and we do a 14.1. What is quite a bit away from where we need to be, but not a million miles away considering the absolute mess of the final sector I produced. So looking at that now, 6 tenths away from Mr. George Russell on the pole position, and some cars starting to fill the gaps. We're equal pace with Kevin Magnussen right now. That is far from ideal. What we're going to do is go into the setup. We're going to add some more front anti-roll bar just to stabilize the car in the final sector of the lap a little bit more and bring the car into a happier working window if we can. Going on to a second lap, we've been demoted down to P11 at this point in the session. Of course, now all the AI have done their first laps. It's us heading on to our second lap. The AI are in the garage, so providing they do not come out of their pit stalls right now, we'll have a clean run at it to try and improve our second lap here in qualifying, trying to build upon that we learned from the first flying lap. Indeed, we will have a completely clear track. We are the only car circulating on the circuit right now, flying down into turn one. A bit equal on the delta, of course, getting a little bit of top speed. That's quite nice. And now through the right hand, a bit of a front right lockup, going for the chicane with the higher anti-roll bar. Didn't anticipate a weaker turn in, but was still able to gain a bit of lap time. So that's been a very successful sector for us. Half a tenth up. Not purple. Of course, with that higher front anti-roll bar right now, it's just struggling to turn the car. It's getting a bit of understeer. Not a bit, a boatload of understeer, but I have hope with anticipation that hopefully it will translate to a better final sector as the rear tyres start to overheat, as the lap develops, as the lap flows. We're 10th up right now. We're going to lose a little bit because of different battery strategy. And now going into the final sector of the lap, we are now very close to track limits. 4th gear definitely worked a bit better there. Through the curbing, over the right hand. That's why we took out the bollard earlier. 2 tenths up. I was expecting more. Okay, there's our chunk load of lap time. That's much better. 3.5 tenths up. Up to P9 only though. just behind Max Verstappen. So we're going to have to improve a lot for the final lap. Now we are down into P10, 2.5 tenths away from the pole position, and we have a lot of lap time capability to make up on our final run. So still very hopeful that we can work our way up the order. Brendon, Leigh, the other Brendon, Leigh, is down 2.2 seconds away from the pole position. We have made some slight setup adjustment, and that is taking the front anti-roll bar down to 50 to help rotate the car a bit more, as well as using 25% on the off-road differential for the same desired and hopefully purpose out on the track. Here we go then. Final lap of qualifying lined up. We're going to need to find a bit of clear air. What doesn't look like it's going to be an easy job. Maybe actually we can invert this and take a slipstream off one of these cars. They're not really wanting me to go ahead of them, or wanting to go ahead of me though. Finally, Stint has taken the opportunity. Norris has also taken that as well. So we are going to be starting our lap with a bit of oversteer, but maybe, just maybe, with a slipstream from the cars behind. Well, cars behind are going to get a slipstream from us, but maybe we can get a slipstream from the cars ahead as well. We've seen in previous races how powerful slipstream has been to helping our lap time. We need Perez not to go for the move into turn 1. He does go for the move. We have to leave him space. And now we have had to compromise our first chicane there. He was on the inside of us. We couldn't just afford to turn in. So that is very unfortunate. Not ideal in the slightest, especially considering he's on the provisional pole position. So it wasn't even ideal for him. We're having a good sector so far though. We have closed in a few car lengths to Lando Norris. And now through the left. Didn't really hook up the apex how we would have dreamt to. And now through the high-speed chicane, easily flat out, picking up earlier battery deployment last time around. Half a tenth gained. Where can we go? Where can we be? Into the right-hander, back on the power. Max Verstappen, provisional pole position. Through the left, back on the power earlier, cutting the curb much more aggressively, finding another tenth of lap time. And now getting back on the power, wiggle as we try to do so. And it is going to be P10, P11 across the line. Let's see if it drops us any lower as other cars are completing their laps. So, quite unfortunate, to be honest, battling with Perez in that situation. Dropped us down a few tenths of advantage in a very, very unlucky, well, I can't call it unlucky, just unfortunate situation that he went for the move. Now every car has completed their lap, and we're going to be starting the race in P12, of course, before any penalties may be applied. Maybe we get lucky and maybe we move further up the grid. So we ended up 7 tenths away from the pole position. That is far from ideal, considering we only lost a handful of tenths in the first sector. In fact, someone did get a grid penalty. We've been promoted up into P11, and this is the setup that we're going to be using for today's race. Going through it right now. We lowered the front anti-roll bar down to 13, as you can see right now, to help the rotation of the car. Starting on medium and 56.6 kg of fuel at the race start, and it is going to be 5 lights and lights out, and away we go. Flying down into turn 1. That was a very healthy start for us, and now getting on with it in the slipstream of Pierre Gasly. Sainz up ahead, Hamilton as well, and now late on the brakes, trying to be opportunistic of the AI run. Great minimum speed throughout the corner, and we have found ourselves all the way up in P6 already. Very aggressive, but after a poor qualifying, that was necessary to get ourselves back in the opportunistic hunt. Can we go around the outside of the AI again? If we can, what a move that'll be. And we have around the outside of 2 cars. It's going to cost us DRS to Verstappen, but what a move that was. We saw the gap on the outside of the track, and we just put our car in it and tried to maximize it going through, and maximize it we did. And that is lovely, lovely job, Leigh. Now, Norris is 2 tenths behind us. We're going to let him go, in fact. Well, if he wants to go, he doesn't really seem to want to go. We have to take the position back from him, as he seems now to go back up the inside of the hairpin. The reason I want him ahead of me is because he's probably faster than I am in this race, and it'll be more important to try and catch the back of Max Verstappen and the leading packs of cars than it will be to fight for P4. Our race pace should be better than our qualifying pace, as our top speed seems pretty okay. But I don't want to fight Lando. I want him to go ahead, not defend him to the corner. Don't worry, mate, we won't go around the outside of you again. As Perez actually goes up the inside of us, makes a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact, and we're going to try and filter in for the rest of the race. Tyre deg is so important around this track. Well, I say filter in for the rest of the race. Use the DRS of Lando to our advantage, but hopefully get that position back. Overtake him when he's closer to Max Verstappen and the leading bunch, if he is able to catch up, of course. Still got a healthy level of battery going into the left-hander. The rotation of the car is feeling a bit better than it did in qualifying, but still a long way to go with a lot of tyre deg to be had in this race. 5% on the rear, 6 tenths to Lando up ahead. We're going to have to be on it this race. We're going to have to really push it hard, as Perez seemed to be going up the inside of us with the arrows. So we had to just be a bit conservative, leave the space just in case he did. George Russell does, well, Charles Leclerc does a 16.2 across the line. We do a 13.3 without the DRS active. Let's see what we can do, and if we can hang on to the back of Lando Norris. If we can, that'll be making our race so much easier, so much better, and we can truly be in the fight for P4 or better if we're able to follow Lando Norris convincingly in a confident way as well. Able to turn off our battery much earlier than I expected down that straight from how much closer we was able to follow him through the right-hander. Right, Max Verstappen, fastest lap of the race, 16.0, 16.6 for us. So we're clearly not at the pace of the leaders, as now Checo Perez is flying past us on the straight. We have to play this quite clever to avoid Perez overtaking us possibly, but not losing battery, not losing ground. Perez has a bit of damage to his front wing as well, but now we're nice and close behind Lando Norris. Yeah, this is what we have to do. We have to be quite clever in the way that we're able to fight Perez, but not put Lando in a position that he has to defend, as that will cost us race time total and lower our chances of catching the leaders again. And also be in a position that we don't overly drain our battery, as that will leave us vulnerable being dropped out Lando's DRS later in the race, even later in the stint even. So I predict that these medium tyres are going to fall off the cliff around lap 8 to lap 11. It's going to become very difficult for us. Perez again all over the back of us, as we just cut him off a nice bit of early, just to ensure he can't keep on looking down the inside of us and costing us time, costing us the ability to follow Lando closely. Another fastest lap, 15.4 from the leaders up ahead. That is flying. They're well over a second a lap faster than we are, and as well what Lando is, as Checo is up behind us, but doesn't go for the overtaking maneuver this lap, doesn't put us under any pressure at all, what is much nicer of him. And I feel like without a safety car, it's going to be quite difficult to get back into contention with these leaders, but a handful of times that they battle will give us the opportunity to be in undercut range of them. And if we can undercut them, going to the hard compound tyres later in the race, we can be in contention to do to them what we're doing to Lando right now, and just follow them home for the remainder of the race. Getting the car rotated, that is nice. The car is feeling quite good so far. I know that's probably commentator's curse, and it's probably going to break down, or, well, immediately as I said that, I had oversteer on the curb actually. But apart from that, it's feeling pretty solid thus far. 15%, as now Checo is catching us a bit by surprise, but again, isn't far enough alongside us to go for it. But we get a wheel spin on the exit, so we clamped that inside curb much more than we probably would have wanted to. And now going through the final sector, we are opening up onto the pit straight. Again, only a 10th away from our fastest lap of the race, as now Checo Perez is putting us under pressure again going down the pit straight, but doesn't pull out, so he's not going to probably go for the overtake, but just putting us under a bit of pressure into the braking zone. And that is another defense of Perez fought out. Of course, we actually went side by side in the qualifying lap as well, so me and Perez are really getting familiar with each other. in his home GP. A lot of understeer there with his car just lacking grip. 8 tenths behind. And now this is a corner cut on the final apex of the lap. Hopefully it'll be worth it though. Hopefully that'll keep us in contention with Lando Norris. We might have to let Checo go past us here, as it is not looking good as our tyres are starting to degrade. Look at the overheating. That is insane. 112 on the rear axle. Checo is long gone ahead of us. And now we are really going to be suffering for the rest of the stint. It's going to be better on the hard though, I reckon. That overheating issue as the tyres should be less sensitive. But yeah, how hard we're having to push our car right now to be keeping up with cars going multiple elapsed seconds faster than us coming on to the pit straight. And that moment with Perez, maybe he had just shot our tyres over the temperature window, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to get them back, as now Piastri is flying past on the straight. There's nothing we can do. All we can do is put the brake bias a bit more forward, try minimize rear tyre locking, and then building up through the sector as we go. Let's see what we can do now. So 111. The rear right tyre has come down a bit on temperature, but we are back down into P7 in this race. But of course, P4 is still within visible distance, so I'm not too worried about that right now. Providing we can stabilize these rear tyres and bring them back to where we need them to be, then it can open up the rest of our race once again. Trying just to get these tyres to the end of the stint. We're probably, yeah, we're going to get overtaken by Lance Stroll here, and all we can do is turn off our battery early. We don't have enough battery to fight him, and if we do fight him into the corner, we're just going to end up losing DRS to the cars ahead. So it's a bit of a checkmate situation. Tyres seem a little bit better on temperature compared to last lap by a degree or two. That's nice. 2 McLarens fighting up ahead. That's going to help us with their time. It's going to drop them back. Maybe it's going to drop them out of the DRS of Perez. Doesn't seem like it though. Building up the speed. Now 40% on the exit. Maybe we can hang the position and hold on to the position versus Carlos Sainz here. Yes, we can. Maybe we have found our groove back in this race, and we can start working forward from here. Having to do a little bit of lift and coast there because I'm a bit worried about that fuel. It's been going down quite rapidly. We started on 2.2 extra laps of fuel and we're already down to 1.7. 111. Look at this. Okay, we can't fight this. We can't fight this. We have to just let Carlos Sainz go past. Otherwise, we'll lose all of our battery and it loses us the opportunity to stay in the train anyway. You've got to use this opportunity to do a big lift and coast to recover some more fuel, just in case we need it for later in the race. The Red Bull, Perez and Piastri are fighting up ahead, side by side. Maybe Lando's going to break out of the DRS. Well, again, might actually be good for us. It will hurt our chances of finishing P4 in the race, but increase our chances of finishing P5 as the AI going really side by side through here. And this is going to help us massively, provided we don't get caught up in a collision, of course, as well. Lewis Hamilton is right close to the back of us, using our overtake button initially. Right, okay, that requires a bit of a replay. That requires a replay because Oscar Piastri was all over the shop up ahead of us, going wide, and you can see all the AI broke early as a reaction of that. So looking on board with Piastri to start with, double front lockup going on at the corner. That meant the rest of the car had a reaction. Look at this slide. We're in between the two cars. I don't think we did make contact with Lance Stroll, but luckily not able to break the wing in that situation. Somehow drifting the car in, and we had to avoid the back of Carlos Sainz in that whole ordeal. If we hit the back of Sainz there, I'm very confident the wing would have been disappearing and ending up in the grandstand. Now Perez is up ahead, running away. Oscar Piastri is super slow. We have to be careful here. Perez might have broken the DRS and might have gotten away from us. Let's see if these two cars ahead have the DRS. A little bit of a cough there. My apologies, as now as now we're flying past Lance Stroll, and now around the outside, 3 wide into turn 1, and we have to look around the outside. Perez has spun. Oh, look at that. That is magician stuff. That is magic for our race. Need to be taking a replay of that. 2 replays in about a sector and a bit. Perez up ahead, out of shape, spins it around, and we have found ourselves back into P5 in this race. Maybe, just maybe, if we get lucky, there'll be a safety car. It doesn't seem like there will be. Safety car won't happen. Perez is back on track right now. But that is what you call lucky, and very fortunate for our race indeed. Going through the second sector now, 1 second. The Carlos Sainz behind us. This is where we have to be a bit more strategical though. We will probably not be able to break away from the DRS of the cars behind. And we're going to have to try and work out how we play this. Carlos Sainz is all over the back of us again, only half a second away as we go into the final sector of the track. This race has really erupted into chaos over the inside curbings. Yeah, he's going to be all over the back of us. Probably we're going to lose the position to Piastri maybe. We have to be quite careful about this as we're going down the straight. The reason we have to be careful is we don't want to lose the opportunity to keep the DRS. Hamilton's got a 10-second penalty. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, that's going to help us as well. So I think he's going to have to serve that in the pit stop. Now, we was not dropping too far away from Carlos Sainz. He actually turned off his ERS once he got past us. That really helped us in that situation. Have to use a bit of overtake to stay a bit closer to him. Down the back straight, into the left, into the right. This is a pivotal middle sector for us if we can keep the DRS alive to him. We're not going to have a choice but to let Piastri go by on this straight. It's a signed, sealed, delivered situation. And now we're going to try and use Piastri to stay close to Carlos Sainz, as presumably he won't be boxing on this lap because both Piastri and Sainz have their teammates up ahead who in a normal situation should get the pit stop priority comparing to us, as now we have a DRS open. Just to be careful of Mr. or Sir Lewis Hamilton, I should say. And now into the left-hander through the right. Lap 16 of the race, so we are going to be boxing this lap. There is going to be a DNF on the pit straight. That looks like Brendon Leigh is retiring from the race. Go on, Brendon, make a safety car. Be a team player. Brendon, help out Brendon. Look at that, Brendon Leigh is out of the session. Unfortunately, no safety car, but a big wiggle on the rear axle was going to leave us vulnerable to Lewis Hamilton going down into Sector 3. So, Brendon Leigh is out of this race, and that's a bit of a shame, to be honest. Not because he was going to score points, but I thought it might be an opportunity to lap him, and I thought it would have been quite funny. So that's a bit unlucky, bit of a shame. And now coming into the pit lane, what should be our first and only pit stop of the race. Lewis Hamilton is behind us. We're going to be going to the hard compound tyre. We should also get DRS on the pit exit, as we think we stayed within the detection zone. Optimal turn in. And now getting the car slowed down, and we are going to be away we go. Lewis is still in his pit box, of course, serving that penalty. We're not going to have people in attacking range behind us. So now we can focus on our outlap. DRS open. Look at Brendon Leigh to the right-hand side of the track. See you later, buddy. See you back at the hospitality. They have burgers and fries and lobster today. It's fantastic. And now, second helping of DRS. Of course, only one detection for the pit straight here. So it's something that you can really take advantage of. As now we have a big front left lockup. That is far from ideal. Moving the brake bias rearward actually. So it did move up to 56% to help deal with the imbalance caused by tyre temperature. But way too far forward when we do not have those issues on a fresh set of tyres. Massive understeer restarting off this stint. Far from ideal. 1.5 laps of fuel as well, so I think I might have been a bit correct, at least halfway correct, as we jump over the inside curbing, just about avoiding a track limit invalidation there. And now, yeah, what I was saying about fuel, we might have been halfway correct, that we could be in trouble if we're not careful with that fuel level. Carlos Sainz, Oscar Piastri should be in the pit lane right now, and now they are on the exit of it. Piastri has DRS, Sainz doesn't, and we've been able to undercut our way back in front of them. So now we can focus on harvesting our battery for the remainder of this lap, and then falling in to try and play the rest of this race as strategically as possible to maximize our chances of, one, not getting track limit invalidations, but two, possibly taking home P5 in this race. 3% on that front left tyre, so that front left tyre is a little bit higher than the rear left. Probably Piastri isn't going to overtake us on the straight, but Carlos Sainz will. He goes past us, turns off his battery so we can turn off ours. Going to need a good exit from the chicane here to minimize the advantage that Carlos Sainz will take down this back straight. And now we did get that using a hot lap down the straight. Should be about 3 or 4 tenths behind him by the time we get to the braking zone. Down to 4th gear. Right, there we go. So 4 tenths behind. Piastri, I think, is going to try and go for it. I think Piastri is going to be in distance, but we're not going to fight him too much on this occasion. We'll leave the car in hot lap mode, and Sainz is going to go defensive, and we're going to try and actually go to the front of the field of this little battle pack anyway on this instance, and then do a big lifting coast at the end of the straight just to try and save that fuel bag. It was better for us to overtake Carlos Sainz, control the pace through the middle sector, than it would have been to possibly fight with Piastri and lose DRS to Carlos Sainz. And of course, we saw with Lando Norris how he scampered off into the distance and never been seen again since he did overtake us. 9 seconds to the better for his race. 16 laps to go. I think we're on a second corner cut warning as well, up to 80% on the battery, so we've done a good job of managing stuff thus far on this stint. Through the right, back on the power, down 2 gears, delay the third, well, engaging third gear, help stabilize the car through the final apex of the lap, building back up on the power. Momentarily had 100% battery there, as we're now going to more than likely lose the place to Carlos Sainz. 104 degrees on the rear left, 105, so we seem to be doing a better job of managing tyre temps. Of course, the hards are less sensitive than the mediums. Need a good time for chicane again, but I'm a bit less stressed than before, and I feel like we have a good opportunity to follow Carlos Sainz even without having to the perfect opening to the lap. So we are in a good position right now. Let's see if Piastri's close enough to have a go at us again, using a bit of overtake to try and make sure he doesn't. And yeah, indeed, he's going to stay behind on lap 22 of the race, not bother us, and we're going to stay behind Carlos Sainz as well and not bother him. Lifting the throttle nice and early just to manage that fuel level over the start finish line. One of my worst laps of the stint so far was 16.8, 3 tenths away. We have built a massive gap to Esteban Ocon behind. Our fuel has stabilized as well, and we are 1.2 laps to the good. So it seems like as long as we can follow in the DRS of Sainz or Piastri for the rest of the race, we'll be home and dry with the fuel, and then we can look to fight with what we have available to us. Piastri gaining quite a bit of speed down the straight. Haven't seen him trying to attack down here for a long time, as we're approaching lap 30 of the race. Of course, still on lap 29, but lap 29 is pretty much halfway done at this point. I think they have so much pace in that middle sector, running into sector 3, it'll be very difficult to not lose position here. As now Piastri is going for it. We have to use overtake button, but we don't have much spare. We are down to 15%, 14. Carlos Sainz is going to defensive, and we're going to have to brake, and we're still going to be side by side with Piastri through the left hander. We retain the position just about, but this is the lowest we've been on battery for a long time, so we have to be very careful with what we do here to ensure that we stay close to Carlos Sainz, but don't leave ourselves vulnerable with no battery for the following laps. Very good for this opening sequence through the chicanes, through the right hand, and nice and close to him. So our pace is still pretty comparable through the left hander, using a bit of the grass on the inside, a bit of a wiggle. I wanted to get away from us there, and now Piastri's not within striking distance going into the final sector of the lap. so we can do our downshift trick, put the ERS to none, harvest a little bit more. As now going into the hairpin, just have to be very careful not to pick up a silly track limit over the curbing. And now building up. Seems our pace is now floating around a 16.8. Piastri is back and wanting more down the pit straight, but able just to retain him off for this lap as well. Putting our ERS down to none, nice and early, 22% on the rear tyres. Right, Piastri is very close to us, but actually no, he is going to be arranged to overtake. We did have to use a bit more overtake button just to ensure that he couldn't get alongside us. Building up the power, and now up to 47% across the start finish line. Piastri is going to be really close to us though, and he is going to probably be past us into turn 1. I can't afford to use all my battery just down the straight, so we have to be a bit smart, a bit aggressive, braking late around the outside here, side by side, trying to defend without using unnecessary battery percentage is the key, is the goal, and we have done that so far. Piastri probably will come back at us a little bit on the straight, and he is doing so, but that was a really critical few corners of the opportunity to stay with Carlos Sainz and possibly overtake him on the final lap as well. Quite simply, if we used our battery there to defend from Piastri, sure, we wouldn't have probably needed to go side by side into turn 1, but we would have probably 20% battery at most, and that would leave us super vulnerable, having to use more battery just to defend, able to retain back to the racing line as we're going on to the penultimate lap of the race here. Of course, closing off lap 34. About to open up lap 35 here. Across the line, 40% battery. It's probably going to be a rinse and repeat of the previous lap to Oscar Piastri, but he stays behind us actually. It is not going to be a rinse and repeat, and we're able just to use hot lap mode down the entire straight. He's going to be going to the inside in the braking zone actually. He did play a bit of a trick there, and now we've just been able to retain ahead of us, but that's the worst chicane we've done in a very long time. What's going to leave us vulnerable to him on the exit, having to use more of our battery. This is critical that we don't lose time with him, and even more critical that we make up a bit more time in the chicane. Penultimate lap of the race here. Final lap will be our only opportunity to get Carlos Sainz, as we have a big snap of oversteer on the curbing there as we try to carry speed into the apex, but the car would not comply. And now through the chicane, this is going to be critical. We're going to have to use quite a lot of battery here just to stop Piastri having the proper chance at us, down to 13% into sector 3 for the penultimate lap of the race. And now throwing the car into the apex, looking for good traction, maximum risk with the track limits. Final corner, not great traction in all honesty. And now using the overtake button down the straight, final lap of the race, but we have nothing left. We have no juice left in the tank, and now Carlos Sainz is going to be too far out of reach, but Piastri is going to be side by side with us into turn 1. We're going to be late on the brakes, carry the speed around the corner. We're still going to retain DRS to Carlos Sainz at this rate, but with such a low battery level, with it being the final lap of the race, Oscar Piastri is going to be attacking us again. Down the outside this time. All this wheel-to-wheel contact in the braking zone. We're just able to retain it. We need to retain DRS to Carlos Sainz. Unless he makes a mistake, it's pretty much over the opportunity to get back ahead of him. But that DRS, what we can pick up now, is going to be making up all the difference down this back straight. It's going to give us a fighting chance to hold on to the position against Oscar Piastri, who's coming at us quick. And now Max Verstappen wins the race. We're early on the brakes. Oscar around the outside, but we're able to hang on to it. Going to go defensive into the hairpin, and final time through a stadium, and we have picked up P6 in this race in the most fighting way I could have ever imagined to be, and what a race that was. Okay. So there we go, there's the official race confirmations, up from P11 on the grid to P6 at the finish line. just over 1 second away from the fastest lap of the race. Pretty much maximized for what we could have done today. Carlos Sainz was a bit too fast on the final lap of the race. We're still in P5 in the championship, and Lando Norris is taking a big jump away from us. But a few races to go. Anything can happen. We are ahead of Aston Martin as well in the Constructors' Championship, so it is looking all to play for as we move forward. So there we have it, another strong race, another strong result, this time around Mexico, of course. This is actually turning out to be a harder challenge than I anticipated it to be, and the AI upgrading faster, considering it's only been like 7 races in the championship. The AI are really rapidly upgrading their car, but I love the challenge. I love having to push myself. So for me, it's been a really enjoyable time filming these videos so far, and I look forward to concluding this series and this season before the start of F1 25. With that being said, I've been Brendon Leigh, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Grazie, Vazazzi. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.